6:30, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe that we do have quorum, right? From what I see. Yeah, we do.
Everybody's here.
Okay. Well, welcome to our second budget meeting. Bienvenue à notre deuxième réunion budgétaire. We respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered here on the homelands of the Anishinaabe people on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Doki's First Nation. Covered by Robinson-Huron Treaty, we honor and we do recognize their historic connection to the land and also value their significant contribution in shaping and straightening our communities. We are grateful to be gathered here today. Nous soulignons respectueusement que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire désigné dans le traité Robinson-Huron, territoire traditionnel du peuple Anishinaabe et particulièrement des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Dokis. Nous honorons leurs liens historiques avec cet endroit et nous apprécions leur contribution significative à nos communautés. Nous sommes reconnaissants d'être réunis ici aujourd'hui. Are there any pecuniary interests? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? I see none. Is there a mover and a seconder for the agenda? Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Denis.
Is moved by Councilor Duhaime and seconded by Councilor Denis Senecal. Be it resolved that the agenda for the budget meeting of March the 8th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Are there any questions? Aucune question? Any objections? Aucune objection? Hearing none, carried. As a summary of our first budget meeting of last week, we were presented 2 documents by staff. And within the 2 documents, what's being proposed is an increase of 2.37%. There was a surplus for the year 2021 in the amount of $1,466,037. We were also informed that 1% equates $182,000. We did review some highlights and the summary of revenues and expenses, and Council opted to proceed in reviewing the proposed capital work projects for infrastructure and approved a total of 3.5 million, slightly less than what was last year, but in 2021, we got double the gas tax versus this year. So projects regarding roads, bridges, sidewalks have been approved to be able to give direction to our staff to facilitate the process and proceeding with tenders and hopefully having interest in contractors and that we don't miss out on those opportunities. So that's just a quick summary of our first meeting. Now we're proceeding with the second, and I'll pass it on to the chair, la présidente du gouvernement général, Conseillère Lise.
T'es sur le mute.
OK, je dis merci, Mme la mairesse. On va commencer où est-ce qu'on a laissé avec M. Barbeau. Mais avant, là, parce que c'était bien la semaine passée, puis je vais essayer de continuer ça aujourd'hui. Ce que je vais faire quand que M. Barbeau a fini de parler, levez vos mains, puis je vais commencer par en haut la première fois, aller jusqu'en bas, puis la deuxième fois, je vais commencer en bas pour être capable de faire un suivi pour n'oublier personne, parce que ça fonctionne mieux comme ça, puis pour moi, c'est important vu que c'est moi qui chair. Alors, j'espère que ça ne vous fait pas rien. Alors, M. Barbeau, est-ce que tu peux nous dire à la page que nous étions et commencer?
Well, I just went and blacked myself out to start. It's not starting well. On est à la page 11. We're at page 11. So as a chair, thank you for the summary. And yes, I thought it was fairly productive from our perspective. Has the And I think that, where we're proceeding now, I think is being well received. So, so I'll continue that way. So tonight, what I'm hoping to do is to go over the key budget changes and what makes up the 2.37% or the $431,000 deficit, and what the key highlights are, kind of decision points or so forth about what are the material changes that from last year to this year. And so I'll do that. And then after that, hopefully after the break, we can go to the Director of Economic Development and Community Services to go over the capital for his facilities and other things as well. And then perhaps go over the equipment. There may be some need to move on certain acquisitions, given the slowness of acquiring materials that might come into play as well. And then after that, if everything's going well, then there were some requests made by a few of you for financial reports or updates, and hopefully we can either tackle them if the subject matter comes up at that point, or tackle them at that point as well. So to start off at page 11.
Mr. Barbeau, may I say something?
Sure.
Okay, well, that's fine what you're saying, but you're talking about the report. Are we going to get the report? I think it would be preferable that we get the report. I only ask for one. When we get to that committee, I should say, or whatever budget, so we're able to discuss it. So because I think that would be more appropriate to make any decision if we got all the report before we make decision.
Well, some of what you asked doesn't necessarily equate to a change in the request for the 2022, but we'll have a look at that. So when we get there, raise the question, and then we'll show the Director of Corporate Services face, and we'll have a discussion as to what she has and what she doesn't have. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on page 11, so quick recap: planning and building, asking for a new planning assistant, or planning and building assistant, not a building controls officer. And to do that it is because the activity is much higher, it is much greater there, and so and the revenues reflect that. So not to continue on that. Community services, I made a mistake last week. The maintenance employee. And we indicated, if you look down a little bit with respect to the StatsCan, there'll be an increase in StatsCan. And so with that, we are requesting some dedicated people or some additional resources for the building that the town hall is in addition to other things. So like we indicated, so you have a maintenance employee at 76,000. You have a increased lease though at 358,000. More than covers it. The other thing we talked about is a community services clerk. And so we are now, we now have kind of an operations center for our programming, our fields, our parks, our buildings. Our manager of facilities and our manager of parks and recreation are working tag team, and there are a lot of requests. And so they have a lot of support now. They're being, and so that's where that's being asked as well. The other major change is we are only taking half and bringing it into revenue. The other half of the StatsCan increase is going to a dedicated reserve for community services. Now we've been really good in the last 10, 15 years, even ahead of government to a degree with respect to long-range capital planning. But we haven't been really good with respect to our facilities and our buildings. We've been going kind of almost pay as you go, ad hoc. And because of that, they've been wearing down and they're costing more than they should. And so now with individuals, such as Johnny, Mr. Belanger, and others, we're now getting on top of it and proacting, which is a good thing. So that is why that revenue is going forward, or the increase in rent from StatsCan is being put aside so we can put it into infrastructure.
Just, may I ask a question, Madam
Yeah,
Chair?
before we go too long, yeah, I'm gonna do so raise your hand, anyone that have question up to the community services. So I guess, Madam Mayor,
Just a quick question, with the additional revenues that are coming in from StatsCan, and it's a great initiative that half is going to a dedicated reserve. From experience on other boards, can we not put that dedicated reserve for this building? Building is aging. We know that we need some work indoor and outdoor. So why not put a dedicated reserve for actual buildings instead of just putting it in a generic pot?
Well, Elisa can speak to it because our accounting system accounts for that. We don't necessarily look at one building or another that way. You don't want to have a ton of dedicated reserves because there's a ton of accounting and a ton of maintenance that does that, but you want to have a reserve that handles the sufficient amount for long-range planning. Now we're going into our capital planning as well. And so that global amount is going to be a little bit like public works and everything else will be reflected, but we don't put a dedicated reserve per se for other than a carryover, but if for a road as an example. And so we're going to put the total reserves, and we let the experts, or I'm going to say expert, Johnny, to determine what the future expenditures are. So we are aware of the needs, but we also have needs all over.
Okay, thank you for the answer. But still, wouldn't that be up to council to decide if they wanted to put that amount of dollars dedicated towards this building as far as a dedicated reserve for the administrative building on Holditch?
Well, it is a council decision to accept the budget at the end and everything, but your staff's recommendation, expert recommendation, both from a financial advice perspective and an operational perspective, is what you have before you.
Okay. Well, I'll just put a note to self because I think it'd be worthwhile that we do dedicate a reserve for this building. There's going to be, anyway, that's my food for thought.
Any other question? Monsieur Revida, Monsieur Conseiller Revida?
My question is just regarding the money that we're getting from StatsCan. The 358, is that per year?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's the bill, it's the rent, is the whatever. Okay, I do have a question on the same topic of Madame Mayor here. Let's say that something happened in the building, like the building where you work, like the municipal building. Can you transfer money from other reserve if you need it to fix one problem? So something happened to the roof and it start leaking tomorrow. Can you transfer? Would you be able to transfer money from the reserve from the StatsCan and fix something in the municipal for the municipal building?
Yeah, well, so the StatsCan reserve is going into a community services facilities reserve as a whole. So if something happened to this building, it would be there and available. The reverse is an interesting point. If we had an emergency and there wasn't, much goodwill to the letter of the law, if I've got dedicated reserves and they're too small and the capacity or the issue with this facility is way more than what's in the reserve, then we would be a little hamstrung to go ahead and fix it without having to do a budget adjustment. And so it's better to have it as a global amount, if that answers your question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we proceed to
Sure, thanks.
community service revenue?
I think we're still doing the
Stats?
well, we're doing the changes, right? And so I'm on
Yeah.
page 12 now. And so at the
Oh,
top of the
okay.
sheet. Okay, everybody on side here? Good. Transfer to capital reserve. So in addition to that, we're also transferring an additional $50,000 as well to top up that reserve. Perhaps, Lisa, so I'm not a talking head, could you tell me what that puts the reserve and maybe speak to the facilities dedicated reserve part while we're on it now?
Thank you. So I think you sort of explained the concept behind the facilities dedicated reserve, why there's a global position on a facilities dedicated reserve. Community services does also maintain fleet and equipment and such as well. So last year, they had an $800,000 transfer to their reserves for facility and equipment and fleet. So with the 179 coming out of stats plus the $50,000, it brings them up just over $1 million of transfer to reserve for current and future capital needs. And I think Mr. Barbo explained fairly well that with now that we're sort of getting on top of our facilities and doing some I shouldn't say starting, but now with a better long range planning, there's certainly a lot of needs within the facilities, and we call it community services, but they address all of our facilities except for fire and public works. Everything else falls under community services umbrella.
Okay, and so if there's no comments on that, we'll move to corporate services. So the corporate services has an increase in the supplementals and penalties and interest, and it's going to be increasing again. So there's an increase forecasted for $160,000 of revenue. And the only other change there were a lot of changes HR wise in that last year. The other change for corporate services is elections. Elections on average are in general cost about $100,000. And what we've been doing is taking $100,000 out of general reserves on the year of the election. Speaking to the Director of Corporate Services and our recommendation, especially this year, because we can do it, is I think proper budgeting would be to do a 1/4 apportionment. And so just so that we don't have to always dip into reserves. So we're putting that $25,000 mark now, which amounts to this year's 1/4 of what the elections are. And then we'll take the $75,000 this year out of general reserve. So we'll take $100,000 normally we take 100,000. So we'll be taking $25,000 less out of general reserve, but we still need 100. Now, what's going to happen next year is because you've put that 25 in this year, next year, that won't be a tax increase. This is the year to do it. And so next year, there'll be 25 and 25 and 25, and that forms part of your baseline taxes. So that at the election of, I'm going to say 2025 or wherever that is, 2026, we wouldn't be dipping into reserves anymore because we would have a dedicated reserve for elections that we would be building up. So that's better budgeting, and it's dedicated budgeting. So that's what that means. Any questions on that?
Nope, not right now. No. Anybody?
No, sir.
Mr. Seneca, raise your hand if you want to. I'll go the other one.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's for Mr. Barbo. That if we go to electronic voting on 2022, 26 or whatever, is that going to bring that cost down quite a bit, or do we need to have a plan for 100,000?
What we're doing is a vote by mail, I believe, this year. I believe that with everything happening, with the fun and excitement that happened last year, we weren't able to look at another real method of election. So we're going back and we're doing the vote by mail. So we're pretty comfortable about the vote by mail costs. In future, though, when we look at other methods of voting, if we're getting quotes ahead of time or getting information ahead of time that it'll be less, then we'd be bringing that to council saying, obviously there's reasons why you want to pick a method of election, not just cost, but if cost is your key thing and we come in and say, hey, we found this at 50,000, then obviously we're going to bring that to council ahead of time as one of the factors which method of election you would choose. But this year it's vote by mail and we're pretty comfortable with our costs.
And just to answer your question, we did vote on a request for electronic voting, and it was defeated about 2-3 months ago. So, okay,
For this year, but not for 2026.
well, for this election, Dennis, for this Mr. Senecal, for this election, yeah, but the year
That's not-
after, we're not.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 4 years down the road.
I
Right.
know.
That's okay. He answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah. So three years down the road, Councillor Senecal, we're going to be looking at those things, and when we bring up those options, hopefully, if there's cost-effective options that can reduce, we'll be bringing it to the council of the day. So, economic development, so I think that's probably best just spoken to by Mr. Poulin or the members of the Economic Development Committee, whatever you feel comfortable with, just because it was discussed by people who know more. It's up to you, Madam.
Yeah, well, I think we'll start with Monsieur Poulin, and then we'll go to Madame Mayor, like our chair.
So essentially what we're looking at as far as increases is the reintroduction of a community improvement plan to allow businesses to improve their building facades and also their commercial signage. So we have that program. It's been dormant for some years, and the Economic Development Committee identified this as a priority moving forward. So we've reintroduced this as a first year look at this program, and we dedicated $60,000 towards that. An increase in professional fees as well. They're to reflect an increased demand in preparing graphic design, translation. We're looking at updating our website content with regards to the economic development information that's on our website. And we also need, at certain points, depending on what comes up over the course of a year, to have an opportunity to have money to engage legal reviews and whatnot. So those are the two specific items for economic development.
Madame Mayor, you want to add something?
No, I think our Director of Community Services and ECDEV reflected the changes. The only thing I want to highlight is I believe back in November, the chair of our ECDEV Advisory Committee, Monsieur Lepage, was going to do a delegation to council to provide an overview of exactly the component of the community improvement program for signage and business facades. And whatever is being approved as far as applications, well, it's a win-win situation due to the fact that it enhances the profile of the business sectors in West Nipissing. It's not only for Sturgeon Falls, it's for every community in West Nipissing. And at the same time, it increases the assessment value of the actual building. And that means at the end of the day, it generates additional revenues to the municipality, to the coffer of the municipality. That's just a quick overview of what the community improvement program benefits are.
Okay, and my comment as a member of this committee, I have to say that hiring somebody to help, she's doing a super good job. She's very nice to speak to. So I think it's a great enhancement to the community, and it's a slow start, but I mean, at some point of time, I think we do need that committee to stay on and to be able to operate, because you cannot do nothing if you don't have money, obviously. So, Monsieur Fisher, Monsieur Conseiller Fisher, I almost went to you because I was getting, where are you? Worried because I didn't, I know it was your picture. I know the difference between the picture and you. I think you look better like that, Monsieur Conseiller.
Thank you. So I just have a quick question about this. I do remember either when we first started or the year before, and just some more details, because I believe that this was quite a popular program originally, and there was lots of uptake. And I'm just wondering, and is this a first come first served basis? Is it a matching program? Just could I get a little more detail about it? And what was the budget when we left off? would be interesting to know as well. Thank you.
Monsieur Poulain, you want to
Madam
try to
Chair.
handle that?
Madam Chair, through you.
Not try, you want to handle that.
Through you, Madam Chair. Our budget when we last had the program was $50,000 a year. We will cap applications to a maximum of 15,000 for facade improvements. And we will also cap the signage component to $5,000 per application. And correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Mayor, I believe initially the CIP program was specific to Sturgeon Falls downtown core, but now we're opening it up to businesses throughout the municipality. And we will have an application timeline. We will review applications and recommend approval for projects based on certain evaluation criteria and whatnot. And it is matching dollars. So the projects have to at least match what the municipality will be contributing.
And sorry, through you, Madam Chair, just people who have longer memories than me, this program did have great uptake. Am I correct in saying that? We kind of ran out of money every year.
Certain years, again, through you, Madam Chair, certain years we exceeded the amount of money we had, but certain years there was slow uptake. But we anticipate this being a popular program moving forward. And the committee didn't want to come in and ask for $150,000, $200,000 right off the get-go. So what they decided is say, we'll go back to what initially we had. If there's tremendous number of applications coming forth and we can only approve a small amount of applicants, then council next year can review the program and decide to maybe invest a bit more in that. So that'll be a trial and error thing for the first year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
I just want to add as well, our economic development officer had reached out to adjacent municipalities to see what they were providing under those components. And it was relatively in line what's being provided by other municipalities. So we decided, just to keep it similar to what it used to be in the past as far as budget range, and use it as a template for the first year. And if there's anything that fluctuates or that there's no demand or an increased demand, well, first council will be informed and it'll be up to council to decide for the future.
Okay, is there any other question? So I'll finish with mine because you asked something about before. So I'm curious to see before it was the BIA. So obviously there was just Sturgeon Falls. And I think even after amalgamation, it was the money was coming just from the tax, the business in Sturgeon Falls for a while. Or did it become West Nipissing right away or BIA disappear? I don't know. I don't remember. Mr. Barbeau, I think.
So this was separate from the BIA. It was actually an initiative with the economic development. Back in the day, they used to call it authority, which was a stolen term. But yeah, back in the day, there was funds set for community beautification or for the business beautification, totally separate from the BIA.
And only the business at that time from the core. Well, Sturgeon Falls was paying through their tax a certain portion, right?
Well, if you're talking about the BIA, the way a BIA works is the fact that in a geographic zone that is dedicated through the BIA bylaw, they pay a premium on their taxes, and that money forms part of a BIA budget that they have. Obviously with approval of the municipality, if they're planning on building stuff on our land, or on our assets, but in general, they had free reign to do what they did that way. And so that BIA is dormant, and it just kind of, in fact, there's still an account sitting somewhere that's dormant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll proceed.
So the second one, or the next one on page 12 is training. I think it was mentioned last week, and I have to deal with a lot of different people. So I think it might have been the mayor that might have mentioned it about training in general and what happens during COVID times. Our mandatory training that is necessary to keep licenses up and so on and so forth, and to provide, use certain equipment in public works and what have you, that kept up. But the other types of advanced training did not, and so we're revamping that to try and get some training. So community services, they're enhancing their training of municipal staff in equipment operation and facilities operation. West Nipissing Fire Service has a change in fire training due to the closure of the fire college. And I believe those are the two, unless I think that's good. Yeah. 13. Yeah. So that's the only 200 training. So really training, what we've submitted with all of the departments is what our training needs are this year in order to operate this year. Once COVID finally leaves, knock on wood, we'll probably start looking at forward planning and seeing, doing, some more human resources based analysis. And look at other training, but right now this is what the training that we need.
Merci beaucoup. And just, I'm pretty sure it was Conseiller Denis that mentioned to you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Any question on that? Then we'll proceed to the next one.
All right, special projects. I think this is a very much, I'm going to duck and give this to the Director of Economic Development Community Services, or do you want me to tackle it, Mr. Poole? Why don't you?
I certainly can. Thank you. Through you again, Madam Chair. The increase in requests for funding for a community services special project, there's a somewhat of a description there. However, I know Madam Mayor had asked for a more detailed account of what we're asking for. So I believe the total proposed budget for special projects is 125,000, of which the breakdown follows as such: community beautification, a total of $70,000. Breaking that down is the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Committee is requesting 40,000 this year. I know Lynn Zuheim, our community development officer, has had discussion with certain beautification groups, and I know that the Friends of the Beach are looking to do some more enhancements to that site. So there's a total of $7,500 that were earmarked for the Sturgeon Falls Beach enhancement. I know that Mrs. Zuheim has been in discussion with the Living Beautification Committee, in discussion with Jerome Cochine, and we're dedicating $7,500 to initiatives that they'd like to undertake. There's also $7,500 dedicated to certain initiatives in Verner as well, and then another $7,500 would be divvied up between improvements in Cache Bay, Field, River Valley, and Crystal Falls. Continuing on that, there's community events where we've got a budget of 25,000. That includes our regular events pre-COVID, I guess, if we can say. We're looking at enhancing maybe our Canada Day festivities, where we always do the Kids Safe Halloween, Christmas parade, the traditional Christmas, and so on. We're also looking to partner up with, I don't know if anyone remembers that we hosted an IPM back in 2019. The IPM at that time, we wanted to partner up with the board and have a IPM volunteer appreciation event, which never happened because COVID entered our lives. So now we feel that it might be an opportune time to start planning for an IPM volunteer appreciation event. And we've dedicated 10,000. I know the local IPM committee also has funds to dedicate to that type of an event. The Sturgeon Falls welcome sign has also been something that's been deferred over the last couple of years. We're looking at the site where just down below the lookout here at Sturgeon. We've had discussions with Crimson Pepper. They developed and designed the welcome signs that we see throughout our various communities. It was also brought to our attention last year that in Crystal Falls, there is a small welcome sign, I believe at Peterson's Corner. It's in dire need to be replaced. So we've added that this year. So we're dedicating $10,000 towards these two welcome signs. And there's also been some requests and movement to really look at Christmasizing. I don't even know if that's a word. Our downtown core and maybe a bit on Front Street. There was a request to do that. It stemmed from the Economic Development Committee, but it's more of a community services initiative. So what we're doing is we're looking at really enhancing the Christmas look of our downtown and maybe a bit on Front Street as well, beginning this year. So we're requesting $10,000 for that initiative. So if you add all of this up, we're looking at $125,000 in special projects this year, with the bulk of it going to events and community beautification projects.
Okay, I'll go around for question. Raise your hand. Nobody have question? Yes, Madame Mayor? Who said
I did. I thought there was no questions.
Well, the question is not bad. It's to be able to comprehend and understand. Last year, we had a lengthy discussion pertaining to the request from beautification, $20,000 to purchase assets to be in the core downtown, benches, the flower pots, and to beautify the downtown.
garbage?
And there was a lengthy discussion because that was incorporated in the operational budget. And the issue was that it was moved for a capital project. And I know as far as accounting, it can go in operation, but I do have serious concerns when these type of projects and some projects are kept in operation, because what's going to happen for the next budget year, we're going to be starting probably when we look at operation with a template of $125,000 set aside. So I'd like to be able to have the entire list of the proposed projects to be able to see which one I feel comfortable keeping in operation versus capital projects. I always thought when it came to community initiatives where there was a budget of $15,000 last year, it was to provide funding to the various communities for beautification initiative like flowers and so on. There was discussion pertaining to developing a formula to make sure that each community would have a piece of that pie, making sure that communities that wanted to beautify the community would have a certain amount of dollars that would be assigned, whether it be River Valley, Field, Crystal Falls, and so on. We didn't develop that formula because there was already, I believe, at the time we were told there was like a variety of projects that had already been pre-approved, and the money was nearly all spent. So, and thirdly, we always get a presentation of beautification activities, what they did in 2021, how the dedicated budget was spent, and what they propose to do in the upcoming year. And don't get me wrong, it's not because I'm debating or don't agree with the different initiatives, but I'd really like to be able to have all this information in writing so I can be able to look at it and make a determination of what I feel comfortable with.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Any other question, Monsieur Senecal?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I don't recall if we did get a report from IPM, but just wondering if we made money with that, and why do they need 10,000? I was assuming that they made enough to have a party, but That's, I can't remember having a report, so I guess this is for Stefan.
If I may, I do believe that they did, the IPM did issue, and that's probably dating now a year and a half ago, they did issue a news release stating that they had made a profit. I can't recall what the number is, but they did issue a news release on that. As far as the IPM, I think council had indicated a couple of years ago that the municipality wanted to thank the volunteers. And the municipality wanted to have a volunteer appreciation. And so I know as part of the IPM program that the local committee had already committed to set aside an amount to thank their volunteers as well, but that the municipality was going to take the lead on recognizing the volunteers.
Yes, Mr. Senecal?
Madam Chair. Well, if when we know the amounts that they have, and maybe then we can decide if they need 10,000. I mean, you ask us to give them 10,000 and we don't even have the numbers. So
Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor is a director on that committee. Maybe she's got the information at hand. I believe that I also believe Mr. Fox came by and made a presentation to council at the time. I just don't recall what the number is, Councillor.
I don't want to be, if I
No, Madam Mayor, yes, I think Mr. Poulin will refer you that you might have an explanation for Councillor Senecal.
Well, I don't want to be quoting a number because I don't want to misquote the number. I believe it was maybe in the $300,000 range, but you know what? Don't take it for cash. But at the time when we did get the delegation from the chair of the IPM, I believe in that year we had dedicated $10,000 in our budget to be able to partner with the IPM committee and do some type of activity or event or celebration to recognize all the volunteers. The IPM was hosted by the municipality of West Nipissing, so we thought, and Council of the Day had agreed, that we put some money aside so we can really do something special for the volunteers when we had volunteers from all communities involved for the success of this IPM.
Okay, so just to clarification, Madam Mayor, when you saying $300,000, was it money they made to get the municipality? The portion, they gave that as a portion? Do you know, can anybody answer that?
You know what, at this point, that was the IPM to make that decision, but COVID came around and it was difficult for the board to be able to meet. But you know what, between myself and our Director of Community Services and our Director of Corporate Services that were sitting on the board, we'll get an update pertaining to that issue because the board will have to decide on how the money will be reinvested in West Nipissing. But we're talking about a community event recognizing the event, the volunteers. We're not talking about the profit of the IPM. It's no, the profit of the IPM is not being rolled over to the budget of the municipality.
That's
to answer your question.
No, but I was under the impression, I know that not everything, but a certain portion maybe. And I remember the $10,000 that was dedicated for the volunteer. I remember that very clear. So, but the rest, thank you. Mr. Senecal, do you have another question?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so after that, I think it was Councillor Fisher, and after that, Councillor Dan. You're moving, so yeah, Councillor Fisher.
So yeah, I just that's a really good question. Yeah, my understanding was that those profits were to be chucked back into local charities, and yeah, we did get a number back then, and there should be some follow up to make sure that that figure did actually make its way back into whatever it was, because it kind of we did go right into COVID after that. There was a good chunk of change that was supposed to go into local charities and this, that, and the other, and we really didn't get much more information after that figure was announced. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Fisher. It's nice to have information. Then we can make a good decision. Councillor Revida.
I'd just like to go back to the statement that the mayor was alluded to in regards to the the dilemma of whether it's a capital in budget or is it operations budget. Can somebody shed some light on that? Perhaps the CAO. That's the first point. The second point is, I was under the impression that the amounts that you presented to us, Steph, were amounts that Lynn Jaime went out and asked those people how much money they needed, and that they came back with the numbers: 7,500 for Living, 7,500 for Verner, and 7,500 for Friends of the Beach, and then the 40,000 for the sturgeon beautification. So, what do we need more in as a report? These are every year they come to us and they ask us more, and they basically go through it. So I'll leave the first question, and then perhaps Stéphane, you can answer. Not Stéphane, Mr. Poulin, you can answer my second point. So the first point is to our CEO.
Well, respectfully, last year there was a debate, but quite frankly, it isn't council's authority to direct either in capital and or in operations. That's an accounting function. And it's an accounting function based on a variety of different factors, audit factors, PSAB, and a variety of other things. And so what is classified as capital and what is classified as operation is a function of the treasurer in a municipality. I don't think council should be concerned about where it's parked. It's the expenditure that's made, whether you call it capital, whether you call it operation, it still is your choice whether you want to do it or not. But where it gets placed into the budget, that's a director of corporate services, not even mine. With the director of corporate, and I work with the director of corporate services every day, and I'll make some statements. Is that going to, I think that should go to capital. Should know it's going to operation for this. So that just to clarify on that, I don't think council should be delving into the weeds on accounting expertise, because there's a statutory position that does that. With respect to the other questions, I'll cede the floor to the Director of Economic Development or Community Services in this case.
Thank you. So throughout the year, Lynn has been fantastic at working with community groups, and we're going to do some volunteer recruitment when it comes to beautification. Certain communities did have good volunteer groups. Some years we have less, some years we have more, but we need to do some recruitment, especially in certain communities. But I'll take Living for an example. I think that we're seeing a lot of energy with the new park, and they've done with the new playground. The volunteers have done great work with the park there in Living, and now there's momentum. And so through Mrs. Jaime and Mr. Crochin's discussions, he's raised a certain amount of a list of things that they'd like to do as far as beautification is concerned, Living. So yes, those types of discussion have happened throughout the course of the year, and then we compile a list and we move that list on to council. Obviously, we can't do everything that each group would like to set out this year. We do have to limit our expectations and according to budgets and whatnot. But what we move forward on the list of special projects, I think will meet certain needs throughout every community.
Okay, Conseiller Rowley, Conseiller Denis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the issue of the IPM for the appreciation, I agree with what Councillor Denis Senecal said. If they made money, why tack it on the back of the taxpayers? If they have money, it should be coming out of that proceed. If we don't want to raise our taxes to a minimum, I think that's one way to do it. Thank you.
Conseiller Denis, do you have another question?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. If I don't lose it, I'm wondering why Sturgeon Fruit Beautification gets 40,000 and community events gets 25,000. I don't see the thinking behind that. I think a community event should be the most sponsored event for us. That's my first question. My second question, I'll go to Stéphane. I think we need, I don't know if we have any plans for the park in Laverne for the lease agreement that's coming up. I think we had discussed that in the first year, but I think we should put some money aside for that, and just my comment. All right, thank you.
I believe, Madam Chair, on that question to Councillor Senecal pertaining to the park, I think that we're still waiting on the diocese. And Mel, you can jump in if you'd like. We're waiting on them to confirm what we've requested, but we haven't. They haven't been too quick at getting back at us.
Okay, Councillor Denis?
Supplement, Madam Chair, through you. I think we know that the lease is ending in May. I think it's May, so we need to plan, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So we can't wait for them. We have to make sure that we have the funds available or whatever we want to do with it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dan?
Just as a thought, and it's not a question, it's just a point that I'm going to make. Or if people have an issue with the 10,000 with IPM for the volunteers that worked on IPM, perhaps maybe we should be spending the 10,000 to honor the volunteers of West Nipissing, because we have so many volunteers that are doing good work in other, all kinds of ways. So perhaps maybe we could spend the 10,000 into, celebrating volunteers. I don't know, just as a thought. It's not a question, it's not a point. It's just
It's okay. Well, point well taken, and it does make sense. And I cannot bet because I don't have money, and I hate losing money. That most volunteer for the IPM was people from West Nipissing. We had even some from North Bay, but a big majority was from West Nipissing. So I think that was the intention. And I have to say it, and I don't want to start trouble I don't want to, but I have to say it. We're making a big fuss for $10,000 for our people, which not even $1 each to celebrate the whole community. And then because last year they got $25,000 and I support them, but I mean, you're looking at the other one, they got $7,500. I can understand that it's smaller, but really, when you look at the beautification, they clean around town also. But I would like to know I'm going to say that as far as capital project, yes, they might go. The difference is that next year, that $40,000 will still be there. And in capital, it will not be there if it's put there. I'm just saying, I don't know if there's capital because we don't have what they're asking for. And I have an issue with that. And Councillor Fisher, just like I said, for the $10,000, he wants information, what they did with the money. And we're asking information and we're not getting it. So that's my point. Thank you. I don't want to start a debate. We'll discuss when it's time to get to the budget. So I think we ought all say our say. Monsieur Barbeau, you want to keep on?
Madam Chair.
Madame, we all spoke, and I asked if somebody want to talk because on the last one, and they said you can ask your question at the meeting not the meeting, but when we talk about the budget, when we get to the community. Madame Mayor, keep your question down and ask it there. I asked the question, anybody else, so.
Okay, well.
Hey, thank you, Madame Mayor. Thank you, Madame Mayor. Put your question.
No, please clarify when I will be able to ask the question on this budget.
When we discuss the budget of community, wherever that it is under community services, we will discuss the budget. We will go through the budget.
Well,
no,
I think we have a different view. We're going to.
Well, then we can talk about it right now. Then, so what do we do?
Well, it depends on the question, but
may I ask you something, Monsieur Barbeau?
Certainly, always.
Okay, so what are we doing? Are we planning of just going through this package and then we're going to vote for the budget?
Well, it would depend on what additional information is needed. I'm recording, and I'm sure staff are recording some of the additional information that you would require to make a decision. I believe it's a fair question. If you're giving somebody $40,000, you want to know where it's going. And if that hasn't been clearly articulated, that needs to come back or to be responded to. So we're going to respond to your questions, and we're going to respond to the questions that you've had during the day. And it's my hope that you will have enough information to determine what the expenditure levels are. There might be additional reports that you may want or need down the line, at a next meeting or what have you. But if the mayor had a specific question and we're talking about special projects.
Okay, well, I thought we would go, sorry to
Yeah, sure.
interrupt you.
No problem.
Okay.
If the mayor has a question, feel free.
Okay, so I'm going to make a comment. Sorry, Madam Mayor, because I was under the impression we'll discuss, because I'm going to say right now, I, for one, the next meeting, before I can vote, I want the information that I requested. It's only fair. Even it doesn't affect the budget. It's something that we've been wanting for the last 4 years. And I'm not asking big picture detail, pens and pencil, whatever you call it. I just want the report that I asked. And I'm sure there's other report that I would like to see, which including what is people take? Is it just flowers for $40,000? Is just whatever? I think it would be, people need to know where their money are going.
Absolutely.
And I know you know that, Mr. Barbeau. You've been there for long. You know that that's people money we're spending.
Right. So you've asked for a report. You didn't hear me say you're not getting it.
No, I know that. Oh, I know that.
Good,
But
good.
if we finish tonight, I won't get it.
Well, you're not finishing tonight. What we could have is a philosophical discussion while we're working so well together about what your acceptable expenditure limits are or what have you. And I think you're very close to a budget, but you want additional information. Some of you want additional information. The mayor, I'll ask for about 6 or 7 reports, not necessarily that are going to affect the bottom line at all. Nevertheless, she's asked for those reports. And so staff has been working in the last few days at getting those reports as well. So likely what I was hoping for is those reports can come as a budget meeting, a special budget meeting of council, responding to some of the specific questions that you have, just to make sure that you're comfortable with what's in the what we're asked or what the budget is.
If excuse me again, sorry. Can I, or you want to, I understand where you're going. So I'm just going to say, like I said, before the last vote is made, I think it's only fair that we have what we request for. Okay. Because even if it's not affecting, I know that the $10,000 is not affecting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the answer I'm giving you.
Okay. Right. Well, now that I know, sorry, I was under the impression that we would go through. Okay. Madam Mayor, your question.
Okay, well, can I go on housekeeping since that was the subject matter? What happens if we have other questions or clarifications with the proposed budget? When are we going to be able to ask those questions?
At any time, if you want to raise the question as you did with your reports, if you have additional questions, as I indicated in my opening memo about a week and a half ago, feel free to ask them so we can be ready to respond to them. So I'll repeat myself again. If council have any questions that are not covered during these meetings, feel free to CC council and send us the request, and we receive them and we gather them. And rest assured, I've met with my department heads and my managers, and we are working at getting those answers. So feel free to ask them. If it's related to the subject matter at hand, which is special projects, feel free to ask it now. If not, prefer, as with any presentation, I would prefer you don't throw me off my game, and we can move down the line.
Okay.
You want to go, Madam Mayor?
Yes, I will. Coming back to the issue of capital projects, it's not illegal I'm going to go with a comment that in prior capital projects, we subsidized a fence, we subsidized table and chairs, and they were capital projects. And the question was asked, is it illegal when we buy tangible goods to move it to capital projects to make sure that it doesn't remain in the baseline for operations starting next year? So,
you want me to answer that?
No, I'm not seeking an answer. I'm just repeating everything that's been said. I understand the optics of
I need a clarification because I never said it was illegal.
No,
I never came. No, let me finish, please. What it is, let me finish, is in accounting speak, there's certain things that are classified as capital, and they're assets that are tangible and are depreciative. That is a Lisa or a director of corporate services. If you want to put something aside, You could call it capital. I would call it dedicated reserve. If you want to set aside to make sure that it's separate from the 125 and you want to dedicate it somewhere, you can do that, but it's not capital. Elisa, am I missing anything here, or would you like to add to that? I think it's clear. I think it's important going forward.
And I think you clarified it there. I think what Madam Mayor and Council is talking about is just how projects are funded. So let's not call it capital. It's not capital, but you want to say, I don't want to fund this out of our regular stuff because I don't want to commit this every year. Then if there is, a dedicated reserve for special projects so that there's a little bit of funds there, or I want to fund this in a different manner, then we talk about how we want to fund it, not that we're calling it a capital project. So
it's called fund accounting. Yes, it's kind of a pool of money.
Okay, but I'm not accusing that the issue is, I'm not implying that it's illegal, or what I was implying is if we are purchasing physical, tangible goods, okay, I want to be able to know what they are. And I want to make a determination if they should be as a special project as capital acquisition versus being kept in operation. And I believe that council has that prerogative to make that recommendation if they feel comfortable keeping it as is, or if they don't feel comfortable keeping it as is and looking at a different mechanism where it would be reported within the accounting process of the municipality. I've stated my fear. You subsidize 40,000 for a group in operation. Next year, your baseline starts with 40. What prevents the group coming forward saying, I want an extra 10 or an extra 20? So I think it's good practice, to start knowing what those projects do consist and looking forward to that information. And at the same time, I really want to be able to get a good grip. And I know community initiatives, it's identified 15,000. But if you look at community initiatives and projects, it's a total of $140,000. I was always under the impression, last year we had a lengthy discussion, the 15,000 was to pay for flowers. If we're not going to be spending 15,000 for flowers, and we spent only 2,000 last year, I think I'd like to be able to make the distinction between both, and to find out exactly what the list of the projects are and what could be proposed under community initiatives.
Okay, and to come back, just a point to clarify, Mr. Barbeau, I think the legal, I think last year the question was asked to Madame the Director of Corporate Service if it's illegal, and she said no. If she explained that she could do it or not do it, whatever, so it's something that she can decide to do it. But I mean, we know that it's not illegal.
Let me just say this right now, just for the, while Phil, it's bad accounting. It's bad accounting. It's inappropriate accounting. The accounting is done by the professional accountant.
I know. Well,
very classified goes into those. Now, if the concern you have is we don't want it to be blending into this corporate thing, and you want to handle it that way so that you have those individual decisions, it's not by capitalizing it, it's by creating a fund. A reserve, a dedicated reserve. So it's terminology I'm talking to you about. That's all. So when the auditors come in and work with Ms. Craddock, and by the way, that your input on capital probably got reversed this year. So we're just talking about accounting, not your intent for what you want to have. The accounting part of it goes to her. That's all.
Mr. Fisher, Conseiller Fisher.
So I just want to get back to I feel a little bit left out here. So there's a lot of dollars going to beautification, and I realize that perhaps there's volunteer groups in Verna and Levine, and they've got their act together and they've come up with some plans, and that's all great. So, but then I see $7,500 left over. And I just wonder, and that's for, basically, we could call Crystal Falls community on its own. So that's for River and for Field and for Crystal and for Cache Bay. So what happens if, we've been through COVID, some of our volunteer groups have been sort of not doing their thing and things have slowed down. If they come to life all of a sudden and they've got projects, that we're talking that's $1,875 a piece. Am I stuck? Is there a mechanism, or do I have to fight for every penny of that money now? Do you get my drift? And I'm guessing that is to Mr. Poulin.
So if I may, Madam Chair, again, if we get a community group or volunteers that come forward and have a certain initiative in mind, if we can make that fit within the allocated budget, once council's approved it, then we will. If it goes beyond that and we don't have the mechanism to support that financially, we've got to come back to council and determine whether we want to go into reserve to support those types of projects. But I think the goal is to moving forward is once we get on the volunteer recruitment efforts and we do kind of reformulate certain committees in various communities and we re-energize our volunteers and then the ideas start flowing, it doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to happen this year. We can plan for future years. We can set aside a budget for their projects for 2023. And then, maybe if Living gets to do most of what they wanted to get done this year, maybe they get less next year. So it's just a matter of proper planning and recruiting new volunteers in various communities and setting them up and getting them organized so that we can plan for years to come. And maybe we get to a point where we have our beautification budget, because they seem to be very, important to all of our communities. Planned for 5 years or 10 years out. And then we have the flowers, because obviously flowers need to be repurposed every year. But once we have flags or benches or special initiatives like that in place, then it's not a reoccurring cost every year. So I don't know if that's answered your question, Councillor, but we might not necessarily be able to implement all the ideas that come forth this year. We'll have to plan for future years and bring that back to council.
No, thank you. That's the answer. Thank you.
Okay. Madame la Mayoress.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, like last year, we had talked about a formula, if I'm not mistaken, on how the 15,000 could be divided for flowers. Making sure that each community would receive, based on the per capita, how many dedicated dollars. If we want to be able to encourage volunteers to step up, it's nice that they know River Valley has $2,000 budget for flowers. Field has $2,000 budget for flowers. Crystal Falls, Verner, Leving. And then you may have volunteers that step up just to beautify with flowers. That has been repetitive. And we've been contributing to each community, but I think the weakness was that not many communities knew that these dollars did exist, and ensuring that everyone has a piece of the pie. So if the $15,000 community initiative is the dedicated dollars for flowers, I think what we should do is develop a template on how we can make sure that each community can grab an equal amount of dollars based on per capita to beautify their communities.
If I may, Madam Chair, the initiative that we had discussed, that we had proposed to council, was to develop a policy. It was to set policy and was to have a certain mechanism every year within policy that community groups could advance their ideas, their projects, their wishes to council, come in and present them in, let's say, October, November, ahead of the budget deliberation. And then council could then decide which projects they'd like to move forward with, and we could plan our budget accordingly. That unfortunately did not happen in 2021. That's still our goal. We're hoping to come to council at some point this year to have that type of policy approved, and then it takes the guessing game away. Flowers are only a very, very small percentage of beautification. Volunteers do like flowers. We like flower pots, but now we're into benches and flags and banners and other infrastructure over and above flowers. So beautification is a lot more to our community groups. Our community groups are looking at embellishing certain sites and parks and playgrounds. So for me, flowers, as an organization, our department managers and whatnot could easily determine the amount of flowers and what type of flowers should be planted where, and then we work with the volunteers to get those done. I think it's gone beyond that now. We're looking at garbage cans, aesthetically pleasing garbage cans. We're looking at lights. We're looking at banners. We're looking at branding our community. We're looking at, you look at Werner, we've got the memorial sites, the Le Canon that the locals refer to. We're looking at embellishing our parks, our playgrounds. So there's a lot more. Flowers are just a small percentage. So I would hope that council doesn't really stop at and determine a per capita formula to see where flowers go in our communities. Like, there's a lot more to that.
Okay,
I don't disagree. But I thought we had two different pots. We had initiatives, which was flowers, and I thought projects was a different angle. So that's why I think, in my perspective, both needs to be clarified.
Well, that's why we did away with we had community initiatives, we had special projects, and that's why I talked to Elisa this year and said we have to stop that, because even at the Economic Development Committee, there was confusion there. So we're going to special projects. We can retitle it whatever council wishes to retitle it as, but it's a pool of money that's dedicated towards community projects that volunteers have and want to see in their communities. That's essentially the definition of what special projects is.
Monsieur Poulet, I agree with you what you're saying. I know that flowers are just flower. Flower doesn't just grow on air. Okay, so I know that part. I'm not too good with them, but I know that part. But the reality is, and that's why, we're going from a budget of what last year in total, Monsieur Poulet?
I believe between special projects and community initiatives, I think we're asking $75,000 more this year if we add both line items.
So do you think really that if we want to do that, that's a major, it's almost a double, that maybe more than the double that we had at some point of time? And there's too much difference. Like, we have $7,500, and then Councillor Fisher have to separate $7,500 between 4 municipalities. Maybe they will have more things that they need than anywhere else. So I don't think it's equal. And that's why it would be nice to see. If they want bench, they should ask. We won't have that discussion, and you could do what Madame Director of Service Corporate is doing, put it in a certain project for that year, and then it won't be automatically raising the operation, because operation year by year it increase. So we have to find a way that when we buy garbage can, that's going to be good for 25 years because of the stuff we're buying good stuff. Well, it should not be in the operation budget for next year, and maybe it should be, but for other, not we need to know what I don't mind. I remember Sturgeon, for example. That was a beautiful community. Like when BIA was there, it's a beautiful right now what they're doing in town. No two doubt about that. And it's too bad that we have to discuss that, because some of them might take it personally, but I have nothing to do with it. I have to do with all West Nipissing is putting money in the budget. We all contribute. Anybody that have a property, we are doing our share, and that's the budget. So that's what, it doesn't matter. Like in my ward, I don't ask anything from my word for flowers or something like that. It's not divided like that. It's divided in need. But we need to have a certain balance. That's the only thing. And I like what she said, Madam Director of Corporate Services, that if somebody wants bench this year, and we can put in a project to make sure that we don't increase every year the budget by $75,000. My God, it doesn't make sense. And then they start volunteer is volunteer, and recruitment I mean, ongoing recruitment on Facebook, what are you gonna do, posting and the paper or whatever? I can't understand but I mean, is the paper, I think Facebook gonna go a lot more a long way than the paper. And with the say, what is the chance of the success? Like we have how much money? I think it's a question I had when it comes to that we put in the advertisement. We got to start spending 60, 70, $100,000 per year. So when we have tools that we don't need to do that, because Facebook, a lot of more people are attached to Facebook. Thank you very much. So we got to keep on continuing. So what do we need to do next on that one? Monsieur Barbeau, direction.
You do have one hand up.
Monsieur Barbeau.
Okay, well, I'll finish that and then I guess you go to
Yeah.
Councilor Larrabee after. But so there's a question that's asking for detail on the special projects. I don't have it in front of me on what Sturgeon Falls beautification is asked for. And so we've parked that, and there'll be some information coming back. So I'm prepared to move forward, but whether you want to recognize Councilor Larrabee first.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Councilor Larrabee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm kind of echoing what Councillor Fisher just mentioned a while back. $7,500 or whatever spread among 3 communities or 4 communities, whatever. So what we're being asked is find volunteers and bring your project, and we'll do them next year. You know, like if that's going to be hard to find volunteers saying bring your ideas and then we'll do them only the next year. I think the budget should be proportionate to each community. That's my thought on this. That's way too low. If it's benches or flowers or whatever it is, I think it's way too low. We should have a fair share. Either Cache Bay, Crystal Falls, Field, or River Valley. It should be higher, so it would be encouraging to find volunteers if we have that type of money to work with. Thank you.
So, excuse me, I'll take those information if you're just going to be repeating the same stuff under advisement, and we could come back with an increase of $10,000 for the outlying communities, and then put it as a division to the other ones. It's not a material change, and we can find a saving or a reduction somewhere else, volunteer party or something, whatever. But I've got the information. I don't think it's going to get solved tonight. I think there's a philosophical discussion or a question between, 6-1 or chicken and egg kind of thing. If you build it, they will come. Or do you, right now, what we do is we respond to community energy and community initiatives. And so in the lack of community energy and community initiatives, we then put some aside, but there's nobody there to be the keeper of it. And so you have new groups such as beautification. You have Friends of the Beach. You've got you do have some groups in field. All we have to do is mobilize it. But in this case, if it's council's wish, what we'll do is we'll come back with a scenario and not wait. Last year we couldn't get to council. We were asked to come back with some ideas as to how to divide that, but it never got back to council for whatever reason. I won't rehash that, but we'll do that. So in an upcoming budget meeting, your questions, we'll try and have solutions for it. Okay.
Merci, Monsieur Barbeau. Just to make sure that people is on the same page, I for one was not asking more money. I wanted to be divided more fairly. And with the money right now, we're asking quite a bit. I don't want to put another $10,000 on that, but I want to be fair to River Valley, to Field, so there's got to be a way that within what we have, it would be less harder to digest. That's my my thought.
Okay, others. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Fisher.
Sorry, just one more comment, and actually, I actually don't disagree with the approach that's been recommended, but I will say some of the outlying areas, and I'm sure Levine is the same, you know, we say River Valley, but really we've got River Valley, we've got Kipling, we've got some of the big wards. They're not one community, one home. It's like Ward 5. We've got Crystal Falls. We've got Field. We've even, you know, you could go so far as say we've got a Muskasong community. We've got we've got a Clear Lake community. There are lots of smaller communities that could take advantage. It's just an observation. Thank you.
Okay, last comment, Conseiller Denis.
Just to say that I agree with Councillor Rowley that it should be divided equally or more equally, and also that North Monedville is not mentioned and it should be incorporated in the discussion somehow. They also belong to West Nipissing, so that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, so are we going to a break right now? We're starting another subject because, well, I press and I don't, what time is it? 7:49.
Motion for a recess.
Oh, you're strong on that one. I'll support that, Conseiller Fisher. Madame Mayoress. So I guess we go to Madame Clerk to read the motion.
I just need a seconder to Mr. Fisher's motion.
I did. Can I? I cannot because I'm the chair.
Your chair.
I
Are you
cannot.
sure?
Okay.
I'll put your name down anyways.
Well,
It's moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. At approximately 7:51 p.m., a motion was tabled for a 15-minute recess, following which the budget meeting will continue.
thank you. All in favor? Carry. Sorry.
I believe our 15 minutes is up, eh? But we don't have quorum,
That's correct.
so we need to wait.
Anya,
We're quorum.
Okay, so are you proceeding, Madam Chair?
You're on mute, Madame Senecal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to pass it to, yeah. I don't know, lately, everybody is changing. You don't remain in the same place. So it's hard to, Mr. Barbeau, it's up to you. There
Okay.
you go.
I haven't moved.
No, oh, you were right at the bottom. You were touching my keyboard for a while back.
Okay, so like last week, which worked and was very well appreciative by the Public Works Manager, perhaps, Madam Chair, if you can indulge us to go to Mr. Poulin's capital budget, because those tenders are equally important to get the appropriate suppliers on time. And I believe that if we did that and we were able to finish, we can come back to this document.
What page you want to go?
So you would move to your capital program, and Mr. Poulin would have to direct you, or I would have to find it.
Yeah, it's page 19. We'll start off with fleet.
Change. Okay, operation budget. No, where's capital?
Page 19.
Okay.
So just a quick question, why are we going with fleet versus infrastructure? That's what we did for Public Works.
Oh, it's just because it's on page 19 and
Okay.
facilities is on page 20. So I just thought we'd start.
Okay, Monsieur Poulin, sorry, I found it.
Okay.
Okay.
So as far as fleet for 2022 for community services, we're looking at purchasing 2 vehicles. One is a 4x4 half-ton pickup truck, again, to replace one of our aging vehicles. And the other one is a new ice resurfacer. The ice resurfacer at the Sturgeon Falls Arena is well past its life expectancy. We are incurring more and more maintenance costs, and now we are at a point where we need to replace it, or we'll be running into operational issues. What we're recommending is that we purchase a propane-powered ice resurfacer. I know electric is more in the news these days, and but that we did do our due diligence. We did discuss this with other municipalities, and we've come to the conclusion that the lower cost, but not necessarily lower cost, but better performing propane vehicle would suit our needs. And when I say better performing, the electric ice resurfacers are still fairly new. Now they're on to ion batteries and whatnot. You require charging stations. Depending on the size of the model that you buy, you're good to either 6 or 7 ice resurfacing, or if you go to a bigger model, you can do 10 to 12 before every charge. It's just, I think we, at this point in time, sticking to what we know would best serve us. And maybe when it comes time to replace the ice resurfacer in Verner, more information, more knowledge on battery-powered vehicles will be made to us, and we'll be able to make a different recommendation. So that's it for fleet.
Okay, I do have 2 Councillor Denis, and then Conseiller Yvon, and then Conseiller Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Stefan, I did ask for a report on it, but funny, North Bay is just purchasing their electric resurfacer, and they're voting on it tonight. And there was a report on Bay today, so I got pretty much all the information.
Yeah.
I think would be more advantageous, besides the price, that it's a lower maintenance vehicle. It's like these vehicles will last what, propane, is that 10, 15 years?
Yes, so approximately
So,
12.
in 15 years, you won't even hear about propane anymore.
Mhm.
So what are you gonna do with these vehicles? I mean, the only thing is, if you look at all the plus and minuses, the only minus is the cost. And if councillors want to go to bid today and look at the report, it's clear there. And I still think we should reconsider the option of electric. I think that's the future. And I know propane's a lot of maintenance. You got those tanks, you got the exhaust in the arena, you got to run your fans. So anyway, you probably did your homework, so I'm not going to argue the point, but I still think we should go electric. Thank you.
OK, conseiller Yvon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My experience, I had 13 years experience with a propane ice resurfacer. And, I did look into what Denis was mentioning. And I come to realize that it's not the machine, that electric is not the machine that will be able to do the work as a propane one would. The thing about the machine itself, it's not so much as the engine, but the moving parts that are always having to be changed because of their breakage and usage. And in time, the machine would, whether it's electric, everything would have to be changed on it anyway. So in essence, the costs versus today as what propane is worth and what electric is worth. And then with the new technology coming out every year, I don't think we're quite ready to buy electric. So I would only support a propane unit because I had experience with it. They're strong and you can do a lot of work for a long period of time. And it's best thing to buy today anyway. So I would encourage council to go for a propane unit. Thank you.
OK, and the next one is Councillor Fisher.
So first off, just because I'm an Englishman, we're calling this an ice resurfacer and not a Zamboni because Zamboni's got a brand name. Is that
correct?
Because okay, so the one we've got, would we dispose of that, or would that be used? Like I know in the past we've shipped them around because maybe we'll get back to tournaments outside, and so is the plan to actually dispose of the one, or would we keep one sort of that we're okay to ship around kind of thing, or is that taken care of? Would be my next question. And then I do see, I just read the article that Councillor Senecal was referring to, and I do see there's a $60,000 difference. I do understand where North Bay is coming from. And I guess that $60,000 in the unproven technology, that would be so that's three questions, I guess. That would be your reasoning for wanting to go propane.
So I'll try to remember all your questions through you, Madam Chair. The first one would be
first one you answered Zamboni. Second one is what do we disposal, keeping to ship around?
Yeah, so disposal, we always keep a spare Zamboni. The one we have right now is, I don't know how many years old. Maybe Councillor Zaheim would have more information on that. And we referred to it as the Giant Tiger Zamboni because it was sponsored by Giant Tiger at the time, and it's 100% yellow. We have that one as backup. We've actually had to use it this year because we had issues with our existing Zamboni. We've had to also send it to Verner as well because we had some issues. So long story short is we do keep a good running Zamboni as a spare in case one of our Zambonis breaks down, and it has happened. So now what we're going to do is work with our servicing mechanic to see if the one that will be replaced is actually still in very good working order, and we can utilize it as a spare, which would mean the spare that we currently have right now would be taken out of the fleet or repurposed for that matter. So that answers your question that yes, we do need a spare ice resurfacer in case we actually need it in a short time frame. And your third question, yes, doing our due diligence, we did communicate with other municipalities. Yes, North Bay is voting on it today, but we have encountered some feedback pertaining to the performance The replacement of the batteries, they're very expensive to replace. Yes, we do save a bit on yearly maintenance, but the replacement of the battery occurs every 5 years and they're very expensive. We would have to go to a bigger model because even the snow tanks are much smaller. So you're constantly having to empty your snow and even the water tanks are smaller on it. So we would recommend going with the same size Zamboni that City of North Bay is purchasing. And yes, the cost is certainly a lot more. But again, unproven technology, I think maybe in 3-4 years from now, the discussion will be totally different. But for the time being, we would recommend sticking to propane. The other thing too is I completely get where Councillor Senecal is coming from. I think we all want to reduce our footprint. But maybe that's a discussion not only for an ice resurfacer, but should we be looking at that for our trucks, our municipal vehicles? Should we be going 100% green? Should we be going 100% electric or hybrid models? So I get what council's saying. We do have a policy on that, but that's probably for a bigger discussion that we should look at maybe buying more battery powered equipment versus gas.
Okay, any other question? I have a comment, no, a question. What is the difference between the two machines?
Price wise, Councillor?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's around $60,000 to $70,000.
Difference?
Yes.
Okay. And to go all green, I think that's you're gonna be asking the resident to take their green out. So maybe at that time it would be less expensive. So I would like, for me, I don't know anything about machine Zamboni. I know what it looked like, and that's about it. And so, what is council wish on that one? What direction you want to give, Stefan? Yes, Councilor Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm also in agreement with sticking with propane. At this time, it's a proven method that it works. And as same as Councillor Fisher mentioned, the spare one, it would be nice on occasion if we could have the outdoor rinks, the ice shaved and redone on a few occasions. We're not talking about every week, but as time goes, when the ice needs it, it would be nice if we could move it around and have it redone. I know we can't leave it outside, so it'd have to be shipped in and shipped back out until we'd have a location, if we could have a location. But at this time, it would be just on a one-day deal. Thank you.
Well, we could build location everywhere. No, I'm joking. Okay, so le conseiller Yvon.
A quick comment on that, and I would maybe refer this to our community service. I would really suggest that we keep the yellow one and use that yellow one as a, send it to every community to have their outdoor rinks because it worked well and still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can use that, and I wouldn't get rid of it because it's not worth.
Right.
So I would suggest that. Thank you.
Okay, so who else wants the propane? I know I got Conseiller Dan. Okay. Madame Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to our Director of Corporate Services. The purchase of the ice resurface, is it going to be done through a group purchase or is it done just individually?
It will be done directly. We're not part of any purchasing group. I know I read the same thing in the article that City of North Bay is part of some specialized purchasing group. So that's something we will look into. However, we're not part of that buying group right now. And I believe they're getting a discount of about $5,000 on the unit. But that's certainly something we can look at for future purchases.
Okay, but the purchasing group, we had approved that at times when large pieces of equipment are being purchased and they're not available within the vicinity, we are part of the group with AMO, the one that is referred last, the one with the City of North Bay, it's free to be able to join the purchasing group. So if we can look into that to see, even if we save a few bucks, it's advantageous, for our taxpayers. So that was my first issue. To replacement of a new pickup, how many did we replace last year? And what's the number of vehicles, pickups do we have within our fleet for community services?
We purchased an additional vehicle last year. We added one to the fleet and we also replaced one. So one came out of service, we replaced it, but then we added another vehicle.
So we did 2 last year?
Yes, correct. We did a 3/4 ton and a 1/2 ton, and now there's another 1/2 ton that needs to be taken out of circulation. So we'd be replacing it. And I believe we have a total of 5 vehicles for community services at this time.
Okay. And it's not off topic. You made reference that maybe the electric one in the upcoming years, once we have more information that unfolds, maybe that could be considered for the one that needs to be replaced in Verner. Do we have an approximate timeline when the ice resurfacer would be required to be replaced in Verner?
I believe we're still a couple years away. I can
Okay.
reconfirm its expected life cycle, but I believe we're still a couple years away.
Okay, perfect. I just want to remind council that at the beginning of our term, we adopted this policy pertaining to being environmental proactive. And I think it was Councillor Fisher that brought that any initiatives that we can do as a municipality to protect the environment, but it was to reduce gas emission, and there were a variety of issues that was identified in that bylaw that was adopted by council. And the whole objective was that if we don't take steps necessary, I believe the words of Councillor Fisher is that, you know what, we're going to be doomed in the upcoming years and future generation. But we never put any dollars to that specific bylaw to entertain any green initiative. And maybe at a future date, that would warrant some discussion.
Merci, Madame la Maire. Conseiller Denis, I know you stand right now. It's for the propane, and so they have the majority, or 7. So
No problem. I wanted a discussion, that's all.
yeah, okay. So, Monsieur Barbeau, where are you?
Madam Chair, I can continue on with community.
Oh, I'm
facilities.
sorry. So
Yeah.
oh, I got a headache, and if it keeps like that, I'm gonna have to ask somebody to replace me because my head is going boom boom. So, go for it.
Okay, so
Where are you now? See, it's right
thank
there.
you, Madam Chair. On page 20, if we go down to community services under capital facilities, I'll try to get down the list fairly quickly, being mindful of time. Projects carried over from 2021, the field covered outdoor rink. We're still waiting word on funding from the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. I don't have any timelines to provide council. We don't know when the next Heritage Fund board meeting is, but I've been rest assured it hasn't made its way over to the board for a decision yet. So as soon as we get word on that, we'll know whether we have the funding in place to continue with that project or not. So as soon as we receive information, we will be sharing that with council. Other projects, the AODA projects, that we're committed on that. It's been approved, and we're going to do accessibility work at the Cashby Community Center, the Verner Arena, the West Nipissing Rec Center, and the Verner Municipal Building. Town Hall, and I'll go back a couple meetings ago. I know. Oh.
Excuse me, I got a question on that.
Okay, but do we wait till he's finished like we did for the previous one, Conseiller Rowley?
It's a question directly to the AODA, which he's just mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the AODA 140,000, that was approved last year.
Correct.
Those are projects that were the province has asked the that we move forward with projects for accessibility, and we have a timeline and every year an estimation on how much money we should spend. And the deadline is 2025.
Correct.
And working toward 2030, but they would prefer 2025. Now, these projects are from last year. Would it not be safe to say that we should add just as much, if not more, for this year?
So to answer that through you, Madam Chair, we're in the process of completing our full building condition assessment / asset management plan. The engineering firms have done all of our big buildings and all of our smaller facilities as well. There's a AODA component in every report received for every building. And even we're looking at parks and playgrounds and community spaces as well. So what we're doing is compiling the AODA section of these reports. And this is something we'd like to bring to the Accessibility Committee to allow them to provide input and helping us prioritize moving forward as per the information provided to us by the engineers. Once that's done, that's correct, Councillor. Maybe not this year because we can only implement X number of projects, but moving forward, we will have a 10-year or a 5-year and a 10-year plan to get to be AODA compliant. Because you're right, the deadline is fast approaching. But we have the data. We just need to put it together in a report and present it and work with the Accessibility Committee, and then come back to Council with a strategy and some dollar numbers assigned to each year moving forward.
Okay, a subsequent comment. I was under the impression that the surveys and the estimates on all the buildings were already done.
Yeah, we do have the information, but we have like 23 different reports right now that we're trying to compile the information into more manageable data and then moving it on from there. Right now, we've got raw data. We just got to make sense of it and put it into a manageable report.
Okay. Then my last comment will be that I would have loved to see just as much as we, if not more than what we've put in last year, to show that we are moving forward, because it's we're having a lost year because we didn't move on them. So
to supplement that, you're right, Councillor Rowley, but we also lost a sidewalk this year. So we're jumping a year for sidewalk too. So I have a question for you, Monsieur Poulain.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading the North Bay Nugget and or I don't know, Bay Today, and the minister, I think it's development in mind, the West Epicing got, I think it's $358,000 and maybe $458. We got an amount that was on the paper that we received, and it was last Thursday the announcement was made. We received more than North Bay. So I think it was Northern Development in mind, and but it's not with the same with the Heritage funding. Are they combined now? No.
Well, the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund generally is a arm's length agency that is administered by the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines and Forestry, but they're a standalone agency. So I'm not 100% sure which funding you're referring to.
Oh, there's one off. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can go and look, but what happened with Bay Today? It's there one day and it's gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I saw it and I read it twice, and I think I share it with Councillor Denis that I had saw that we had got money, and I asked Madame Mayor, and she had not read it, but I mean, it's out there. There's money that we got and was announced last Thursday. Okay, so
I'll look into that.
Okay, keep on rolling.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, one thing. Do we have a councillor that's blocked from our meeting right now?
No.
Okay, I don't see Councillor Chris.
Yeah, he's there.
Okay, so he's not blocked?
No, he's not blocked. Sometimes he put his picture.
So the issue is an issue of bandwidth speed, and what we found last week was that a lot of people were freezing and spinning out and cycling, and so you're the only person who in that room that doesn't see the fact that people are there, but they're blocking out. Because when you take your picture off, it just provides a little bit more speed, according to some. So that's apparently what Chris was saying.
Okay, but it means that the picture has been removed, right? They're still in the meeting, but the picture has been removed.
No,
Right, right. He's removed the picture. He's listening in sound, and then when he's called upon, he puts his picture up, or when he wants to ask a question, he puts his picture up.
no, usually he comes alive when he asks a question. Right now his picture is up because he's not, okay, so but.
Okay, I'm trying to understand because, I'm just looking at what we're seeing on the screen and I don't see everyone. Okay, coming back to the AODA project, I don't want to lose sight either that there has been some funding that has been available to be able to entertain these projects. So as a comment to Conseil Broly, should we be doing more? I don't disagree that we should not be doing, I don't disagree with that comment. But also, let's keep in mind that sometimes the province comes in with legislation, they don't provide the money to it, and it's borne on the back of the taxpayers. But we should also not miss out on funding opportunities for accessibility, because there's been many municipalities that took advantage of it. Pertaining to the field rink,
There, Madame.
well, that was above the AODA. We were told the funding about NOHFC. There were funding announcement to the east of us and to the west of us. The city of North Bay, the city of Sudbury had a recent announcement for a multitude of projects. I reached out to our local member of provincial parliament to see if he can follow up on our application for the field rink. So I know the individual or MPP is checking into it. And as soon as I get any information, I'll make sure that I share it with the group.
All right. Okay, Monsieur Poulain, voulez-vous continuer?
Oui, certainement. Another AODA project that was deferred. Initially, we had looked at making improvements to our front counter here at Town Hall to be able to serve our residents and our clients with an accessible counter. That is now expanded a bit more because Statistics Canada did their own review and they've come in with a list of AODA requirements. So we've lumped both projects into one that will basically improve accessibility to this facility here with the front entrance. Even the sloping outside has to be fixed more. We're going to look at more accessible parking spaces as well, which has been identified by Statistics Canada. So that's the 175 that you're looking at, is to redo our front counter and our entrances and other areas within the building to meet certain issues that have been raised. Now on to 2022 projects. Again, this building, it was mentioned earlier during the meeting, we are in need to invest. We need to upgrade our HVAC equipment at Town Hall. We're also, the second line is the community services operations / garage building. I guess Councillor Zaheim knows that everyone within our department refers to that building as the Centra Gas building, which is located next to the Sturgeon Falls Arena entrance, which is next to McDonald's. There's a small building there. Community services occupy one side of the building. There's two garage entrances on each side. The other side was used by our water and sanitary department for some time, and then the OPP were using one section of that building over the last couple of years. Now they've vacated that area, and community services has a need for storage, for a work area for our staff to do work in. We will fully utilize that building to its maximum, and there's some work obviously that needs to be done. There's some repairs and maintenance to be done at the front area and create a hub for community services staff to be able to work from, because we don't have space. We don't have a garage, we don't have space. And we also want to fence out the area where the parking, so we can have a safe compound to park our vehicles, to park our cargo trailers and our lawn cutting equipment, so that it's safe and not accessible by anyone. So there's an important investment that needs to be made, but it would be putting that building to really good use. The other item, if you look at public docks, boat launch repairs, Holditch and Muskesong, that is an oversight. I had originally made that change, and those docks will be looked after because it's basically resurfacing. They're not complete overhaul. It's resurfacing of the docks. That's going to be done through facility maintenance in our operating budgets. So that line should be removed out of capital. And then we're on to roof replacement. There's a section over the Sturgeon Falls Arena lobby that is required to be replaced. So we've added an amount there. And the recreation mechanical upgrades for the pool mechanical room, we're in dire needs to service that mechanical room and change equipment and update equipment. And there's a substantial amount that will be required for an investment to ensure our pool is properly functioning over the next number of years.
Okay, question. Monsieur Duhaime, ton micro, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Madame the Chair. To you, Monsieur Play. Did we ever fix, and just a question there, with community service operation garage, did we ever fix the roof on that? Did we do major repairs on that roof? Because it was leaking a lot when I was there.
Yeah, no, it was just patchwork, Counselor, and that's part of the scope is to repair that roof.
Okay. Now, and the other thing is to open the wall up between the two garages. And there's a great need for that garage. I used to do a lot of work in there because that's the only place we had to work. I was either that or the Zamboni room. And no, I think that is a project that's well in needed. I think we should do more there. Do you think 125,000 is enough? I don't think so. I think we should utilize to this fullest. We should build a lean-to there and caged in and have our machines, the machines that we can put outside in that cage. I think it's a phenomenal investment, and we're is well needed in that service. Also, the pool mechanical upgrades. Yes, the upgrades have to be done. It's in dire need. It's to a point where it's going to fall apart, and we'll no longer be able to use that pool. So, Monsieur Poulin, just I'm wondering, have we thought of going back to chlorine, because salt is killing the system, because it wasn't built for salt in the first place.
Yeah.
And we made so many changes in there, tried to fight off the salt, but it's an ongoing issue. Are you thinking of going back to, or suggesting going back to chlorine, sir?
Yes, Counselor, that is something we're looking at. We want professional advice on that. So we're getting a consultant to come in and have a quick look. And determining the costs associated with going back to chemicals. But yes, the salt is over time showing that it is creating corrosion. Our pumps are failing quicker than they should. There's a lot of corrosion within the mechanical room, and it's mostly due to the salt system. So yes, to protect the asset, we are certainly looking at converting back to chemicals. And depending on what the consultant or the report will tell us, we'll have more information to share at that time. But yes, no, that is something certainly we are considering.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you. And I hope we do go back. So thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
Okay, Monsieur Duhaime. Monsieur Chris Fisher, Councillor Fisher.
So I just want, I guess a question and a comment. So I was in the arena on the weekend, and there was a bucket in the lobby there because it is leaking. So So I guess my first question is that 75, that's to fix the roof, and also I'm guessing the ceiling on the inside is going to need some repair as well. And then sort of a larger question that's probably me getting into the weeds, but I've got to ask it. Why is that a flat roof? Why do we have buildings that are flat roofs in the north when we get the snow loads and we get the melt? Like, wouldn't it be easier just to put some trusses and put a small, I don't know, tin or something so that they're not flat roofs? Like I drive around and I'm thinking, why do we have flat roofs? Down south I can understand, up here I don't. Maybe that's not a good question, but there you go. Thank you.
It probably is a question for an architect, but I as well. And that's why we insisted when we built the OPP detachment in Cache Bay, we insisted on a sloped roof. Because I myself don't understand why in this climate we would build flat roofs and you look at every school, the hospitals, every public institution seems most have flat roofs and they're most problematic. So we insisted and we worked with the architect that designed the detachment in Cache Bay to have a sloped roof, just to try to avoid those issues. So moving forward, maybe that's something we'll definitely continue to implement.
Okay, thank you. And so it wasn't such a crazy question. Thank you.
Any other, Madame la Mairesse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to make sure I comprehend correctly. Total projects between the projects that were carried over from last year and the new ones proposed, it's a total of $1,010,000. That does not include the ice resurfacer and the 4x4 pickup that needs to be replaced, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's in addition. The fleet is in addition to.
Okay, so we're looking at a total investment of $1,165,000. Now, a comment a while ago when we talked about the revenues from StatsCan, and we said that we would put a dedicated reserve for facilities of $179,000. We said we would do that with the extra revenues that we're getting from Stats. We're looking at replacing the town hall HVAC equipment upgrade at a cost of $190,000. And we're putting $179,000 in reserve, which was generated from revenues from the lease agreement of StatsCan. And from my experience, it's always been an ongoing issue with the HVAC system within this building due to the expansion that the building had years back. So why are we not considering and taking this extra revenue and applying it towards the project of the HVAC equipment for town hall?
But
we're asking taxpayers to subsidize a project and we're getting extra revenues from StatsCan, which is a major tenant in this building, and we're parking half of the money in the bank.
But Lisa can correct me if I'm wrong, but indirectly, that money will still pay for that project. It's going to a capital reserve, and then it's being spent on community services or capital facility work. So indirectly, that money will certainly pay for those upgrades.
Okay, but what?
I think Elisa would give you the accounting answer.
That's correct. And so, community services maintains a facility reserve. General government had a facility reserve as well, but that's how we account for it, is it goes out to reserve and then comes back in from reserve to fund the capital. So the 179 is just cycling out, but it has to go out before it comes back in. And that's exactly it.
Okay, so may I clarify, Madam Chair, just to make
Yes,
sure
you
I
can.
understand? So what we stated is 50% of the 358 in the extra revenues that we're getting from the lease with StatsCan. We were putting half of it within revenues for operation, but then there was mention that we would set aside the other 50% in a dedicated reserve. So are we going to be using that dedicated reserve
No,
to
it's
be
not.
applied?
It's put into the dedicated capital reserve. It's not a reserve, just stats can. The 179 is going into the global community services capital reserve. So they're
Okay.
putting it into that amount. So it's not dedicated just that way. And the revenues is, it was recognized as a generality. What you have here as a budget expense are the line item expenditures that we need to put in and prioritize. So it's a good news thing that we're able to increase the annual amount of expenditures or the annual amount of reserve contribution by that amount plus the extra 50. And that's a good start. So,
Okay. But I wasn't sorry if I led to believe that it was a dedicated reserve for stats. That isn't what I meant. What I meant was that I understood, and I'm trying to make sure I understand it. And I guess if I'm questioning it, I don't understand it clearly. 358 extra revenue. Half of it goes into our operation. The other half goes into community services facility dedicated reserve. Are we going to be pulling that reserve to be applied towards the projects? Yes or no?
yes.
Okay. So even though we have this proposed cost, it's how the proposed cost will be funded. So we're at the end of the year, when we're going to be looking at the report for dedicated reserve, we're not going to have a dedicated reserve of 179 for community facilities because we're going to be spending it this year. Would that be correct?
Elisa, can you kind of?
Yeah, so you may still have a facilities reserve because of other funds or the way budgets roll and things like that. But yes, the money from stats will sort of flow through that facility reserve to do the work that staff has proposed this year.
Okay. So when I'm going to be looking at the dedicated reserve at the end of this year, it'll be reduced by 179. Okay, that's what I wanted to find out to make sure I understood. Thank you.
In and out, yeah.
Can I ask a question to Madame Director of Service,
Sure.
Corporate Service? Can
sure.
I?
Yes.
Well, yes, but I mean, she's not answering me.
Well, she's just waiting for the.
Okay. Can I? Yeah, okay, so this $1,065,000 that we're requesting, like starting in page 19, there will be 150,000 taking out for a reserve. So really, we're not financing that in this budget because the money's there. So because we're asking 150, is the project is more than 150? Maybe that would answer my question, because then we'll take money from the reserve for the community service, the 178, and then because I have, and I think last year was something like that. I got a little bit of problem understanding, because we're talking about budget. Everything that's in here, if we approve it, it have to do with the $400,000 increase and the 1 point something million we put on it. Okay. So for me right now, if I look at it and I understand, and I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, I understand that the reserve got to pay for it, but here I look at it, and for me, that's part of the tax increase because it's on. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think I follow your question. So with the transfers to reserve and with capital, sometimes the transfers to reserve that we do each year, which is the part that hits the tax, if we increase how much is going to reserve, that's the part that hits the tax. And that money that's sitting in reserve, particularly for facilities and roads, might get spent in the current year. It might be building up for projects in future years. We've got something big in future years. What's impacting the tax for community services reserve this year is they're asking for an additional $50,000.
Okay.
Go into a community services reserve. So that was an additional ask. And this 179 from stats is a bit of a windfall because we've got the extra revenue anyway. So what's hitting the tax is just that extra 50,000. So between the reserves that we're carrying over, the reserve money that they're asking for this year, all this work can get done, and you'll actually have a little bit that's going to carry forward.
So you're showing it there, but the money, it's already been taxed somewhere
Yeah.
else. Okay,
Yes.
so we need to approve the budget, this to spend what
Yeah.
okay. Bon, ben,
We're already
merci
on.
beaucoup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Can I
Okay.
ask further questions pertaining to the list of projects, Madam Chair?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I just want to follow up on specific projects that may have been highlighted throughout the year or through other committees. Projects such as painting the flagpole at Minnehaha Bay is not on this list. That was an issue that was discussed at the Economic Development Authority, and it was referred back to council for council to look at it as a potential project. There were issues that were highlighted for fencing at the Cache Bay Ballpark. I'm not sure if that's maintenance or if it's capital or what it is. And I know I've seen it somewhere, and I apologize for the oversight, but there was also the issue of the Cache Bay Park pool, the swimming pool. And would that not be part of a capital project for community services? So when are we going to have the discussions for those potential projects?
So essentially, if I may, Madam Chair, answer those questions. One is the flagpole, repainting of a flagpole is not necessarily, I know we did discuss it in previous years as a capital, but it's facility maintenance 100%. It's and that's something we plan on looking into this year to make sure that we can get a contractor and see what the best solution to getting that flagpole painted. Secondly, the fencing at the Cache Bay ball fields is something we're going to address. There's one ball field that's in better shape than the other. There hasn't been baseball played in Cache Bay in probably 10 years now. So we're looking at that. We're also going to look at the baseball field in field and see what, maybe if we can repurpose those facilities because they haven't been in use for so long. But we will look and see what can be done about the fencing. We also, and then the last one, the Cache Bay Trailer Park pool, it is a project for consideration. And again, Elisa, help me out here, but I think they are identified in the document at a certain point under capital projects for consideration. And that's for council's decision to be made. I know I included two of those projects, one being the Cache Bay Trailer Park pool deck and fencing project for $90,000. And the second one being a request from a community group, the pickleball group that had presented to council for a permanent multi-use facility. That's a project that could, and again, we didn't dive into getting all the specifics, but it's something for council to give us direction on. That is potentially a project that could be anywhere from $1 to $2+ million to build that type of facility. So that is listed somewhere in the document for council's consideration. Before we close the budget discussions, we will be seeking directions on those two capital projects.
Okay, I just found it in the document. It's in the reference document and it would be the last page, page 37.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be discussing these at a later date, or do we continue now to find out what direction we want to go with this? Or if we're going to be provided additional information?
Not sure you need additional information since you have it there. What the issue is we have a proposed expenditure level. Whether council has a comfort level with that or wants to increase expenditures in projects and then find other things, we'll take it down the line. But the initial presentation will go through this, and then if it doesn't capture everything as you indicated, then we'll have to make some adjustments. Certainly, the pickleball facility is not a 2022 facility or expenditure. So the pool is certainly a discussion point, though.
Okay. If I may, and that's what I meant, with additional information, the pickleball facility, we got a presentation, but there's probably been some legwork that's been done, and that would probably be a subject matter that would be added at a future date.
Yeah.
Under
would-
community services.
Pretty likely, if there's an update to be had, yes.
Okay, but the Cache Bay pool deck and fencing, should we not look at that now? If our main concern is making sure that we have suitable contractors in a timely fashion to do the work. Cache Bay Park is scheduled to open in the month of May. And if we want to secure a pool contractor, may be difficult if we don't get direction or there's not a decision done in the near future.
Which page is it, like that I can find the information?
It's the package of reference documents, and
Yeah.
it would be the last page.
Okay. Oh my God, there's so many pages.
My suggestion would be for pickleball that we have that subject matter on a community services agenda and be provided an update. Because just to see exactly what the what work has been done so far.
Well, I think, yeah, that can. Monsieur Fisher, Conseiller Fisher.
So I just wanted to make a comment because we discussed so there was baseball in field. I played a couple times and then COVID hit. So I think it's perhaps a little premature to write baseball off totally. And that fence did get knocked down by some hooligan with a ATV. But my question, actually, I have a question. Approximately how much are soccer goalposts? Because this year, Canada, in the fall, we have a great soccer team. We're going to go to the World Cup. We're going to do really well. And soccer is going to be on the uptake. And if there's no reason why we couldn't multi-purpose those sites so you can play soccer or you can play, are they expensive? Is it doable? Is my question.
I think anything's doable. Sure.
Yes, yeah. I was just gonna say anything's doable. I don't think, soccer nets are that expensive. If we want to repurpose some of these sites and allow us to put a couple soccer nets here and there, then yeah, we'll gladly do it.
Okay, that's where the world is going. Thank you.
I think the world is going to pickleball.
So what's next? Conseiller Duhaime.
Okay.
Anything new, or you want to talk about something?
Something I want to add to this here, if I may, while we're in a discussion of other things. To Steph Poulin, if I may, Monsieur Poulin. The community service operation garage building, okay, no, the roof, okay. Stern Falls Arena lobby. Okay, and the way, another way of saying it's a FPT, so okay. So now, I think we should be looking at a proper facade and reconstructing that barn. It was a garage at one time, okay, that they fixed up and it looks like heck. I think we should look at demolishing that and building something, an entrance there that would make sense, probably adding some late girls' dressing rooms, and proper facilities, washrooms. I think that's important. I think that should be a project that we could look at, have it shovel ready if something comes up. But it's very important that we do look at it because it's not in the best of shape. It's a wooden structure. And like I said, it was just an add-on to the old arena, or the arena that's there now, as just a garage storage area. So it's something we should look at and get prepared, and I think seriously look at it. But the other thing I mentioned, Madam Chair, is that because of COVID, I wasn't able to continue with my project with the Goulart Park fields. And I wanted to speak to Monsieur Poulin about this, and I was preparing myself to make a presentation to council to move forward with this. And because there was money spent on that. Not much, but I think there is my duty to make sure that we follow through on this. I'd like to work along with Monsieur Poulain to see this done in the very, very near future. And that is a major project that I think all of West Nipissing will benefit from. And we're looking at $3 to $4 million for that project, but it works. We can do it in stages, and it would mean a lot for the community. So that's just I just wanted to bring this up.
So
Yeah.
what I suggest you do, Conseiller Yvon, is you put the request to put it on the agenda at a later date so we can discuss it.
But first I have to go in and see Monsieur Poulain and talk to him about it.
Well, you do what you have to do, and when you're ready, you put it, you forward it to Monsieur Barbeau. Monsieur Fisher, Monsieur, not Fisher, Monsieur Larrabee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I guess it's the way that I phrased it a while back. I would like to rephrase what I was saying is for the AODA. Since we have a lot of projects that needs to be done, and I saw the brochure. It's about this, it's about there's a lot of project that needs to be done. I would like to see as much put down on this budget this year, and then we could pick and choose the project after, because we're going to be running behind. If we skip 1 year, we're going to be running behind on those projects. And I kind of got a hard time looking at doing parties and cooking hot dogs, hamburgers for events and fireworks all over the place when we have problems with handicap not being able to access buildings or having a hard time. I think the priority to me we should be looking at that. So I'm requesting that we put as much as we did last year in the AODA for future projects.
So that can be put on the table. So now we're trying to manage this budget to minimize it, and then we're going to be adding dollars. So I think if we start reopening all the discussion, I think there's a few things that I would like to add, and I'm not the only one. So, and not because it's not a good project, but I just resent a little bit, Councillor Larrabee, the way you're saying about volunteer, because without volunteer in West Nipissing, there's so many things that were not happening. That, I mean, look at the hospital, look at the old chateau. So $10,000 for 1,500 people. I mean, and you're saying that you got a problem with that? Hey, you got a problem, but well, you're saying you have a problem with that.
No, that's not what I said. I said we're spending money on types of events, on all kinds of events, but yet we have people that have problems accessing buildings.
Like there's people that have problem running on the sidewalk also.
That's
sidewalk
right.
Also. So that's open. We can open the floor.
My view is we should be looking at taking care of people. That's my view.
Oh well, I agree 100%.
Thank you.
I'll say for sure.
So I was just going to say that I know we did get a document at some point in time on this stuff, and I neither agree or disagree with Councillor Larrabee, but perhaps we could be given that sort of a refresher on that. Maybe the documents that have been published, or maybe some summary of the life cycle of it, and so we can understand it better, because right now I'm not in a position to agree or disagree. If I had a bit more information, perhaps I could. Thank you.
Can I add to that, or you want to answer right now, Monsieur Barbeau?
You can add to it and I'll answer.
Okay, because I would like, that's another thing we're trying, and I'm not disagreeing that we need how much money, but we don't know. We don't know what the projects are. We don't know how much money we should put down. And another question, and maybe Stéphane, Monsieur Poulain, you can answer right now, is do you know how many buildings in West Nipissing are not acceptable? Do you have a ballpark acceptable at all to
our buildings?
Well, our building, yeah.
I mean, there's always a room for improvement, but I don't think any of our buildings are not acceptable. But there obviously, we do have work to do in
Yeah.
all of our buildings to be more accessible friendly. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, but you did answer my question. How many sidewalk that need to repair and to accommodate the wheelchair? We're talking about the bridge and it's not on the budget this year. So there's a lot of things and I agree. Listen to that, Councillor Fisher. I agree with Councillor Fisher that we need the report to look at it and a kind of an assessment and discuss at a later date to see what we can do. So at this point of time. So, Madame la Mairesse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pertaining to the comment of Conseiller Rowley, there's going to be a total of 315,000 that's going to be spent this year for AODA. True, there has been projects that are deferred for several buildings of West Nipissing, including this building here, which is being added on. Donc, c'est un total de 315,000 $. And I remember reading one of the minutes of the group, and I believe the chair of the group made reference, do not forget that there's also funding available to assist municipalities to move forward with initiatives. And I think and you know what? I find I don't agree with the comment saying that we don't care for people, because if we don't care for people, people are employees, people are the public, but you cannot be a Cadillac overnight. I'd like to see how many dollars that we've spent on AODA initiatives in the last 5 years, even the last 10 years since it's been legislated. Because if I remember correctly, last year and this year will probably be the largest amount of dollars that's being invested on AODA initiatives. And you know what, Conseiller Rowley, I know there's a lot to be done, but let's not forget our job as elected official is also to advocate for funding where there are opportunities to also get matching dollars. And it's unfortunate that we haven't been doing that. So to say that we'll put more money, I'd like to get a good report, a report that tells us exactly what's the investment required and what's a proper planning to be able to achieve the timelines that are defined by the province. And if it's not doable, what will be the strategies? And I think it does require more discussion on the subject matter.
Well, I think we can go around.
I gotta answer to her, to what she just said.
Wait, you don't have the floor. You don't have the floor because
I'm taking it. It's $140,000.
Hey, Monsieur, you're not gonna play with me. If you say another word, I'm asking you to leave because it's not your turn.
I don't have any problem with that neither.
Oh, you don't have a problem. Why don't you leave? If
ma'am.
you can have respect for us, I'm asking you to leave right now.
Back and forth.
Monsieur Barbeau is trying to say for the last, when the mayor started, so I was going to Monsieur Barbeau, I was going to you, but I asked you to leave.
Okay.
I'm not changing my mind. You go. You go, because if you're not go, I'm canceling the meeting right now because I have the right to do that. So you cannot have respect to us. Bye-bye.
Why not, Lisa, that's a little hard.
Hey, my name, Councilor or Chair.
Let's not scrap the meeting. Let's
Let's
calm down.
from that picture right now.
Please,
Councilor Fisher, I'm saying it for the last time. You leave right now or I'm cutting the meeting and I have the right to do that. I am getting fed up trying to be polite, trying to do my job.
You're not the only one.
There you go. Well, then I'm trying to do my job and that's the best you can do. You leave right now. You got 10 seconds. I'm sorry, guys, but 10 seconds to leave and I'm canceling the meeting and you have no choice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you don't excuse yourself. I know that. Oh, I'm up to 7, 8, 9, 10 out or the meeting is canceled. Sorry, Jay. Make some sense, somebody to him, but I'm trying. So meeting is canceled. Mel, I have the right to cancel the meeting. It's canceled right now. No?
Fair's fair.
Did you want to,
Fair is fair. No,
did you want to adjourn? Did you want to?
I
me to
want to
read the
adjourn the
resolution?
meeting because we have counselor around the table that think they can do nothing and with no consequence. I am getting fed up. You can do the same thing when I do the same thing you did tonight. Again, Councillor Rowley.
May,
Motion to adjourn.
Madame Mel, sorry, I don't want to hear any
Motion to
comment.
adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I second that.
You
It was
cannot
moved by
second that.
Moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Larrabee.
And next time, next meeting, if you know what, next meeting, if you are here because he did not want you, I'm gonna have you to be excused too if you open your mouth. Because I'm sick and tired.
Okay.
Staff, you guys
Okay.
put it on the list.
Madam Chair,
Madame Mel, do
Fisher and
your,
seconded by Councillor Larrabee, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-32 being a bylaw of the West Nipissing municipality.
Madam Clerk,
Yes,
Madam Clerk, Mr. Larrabee has no rights. He's been expelled, so I will second it.
yeah,
No.
no, that was my decision. I'm
it
not
is
going
moved by
back.
Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal, be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-32 being a bylaw of the West Nipissing municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 8th of March 2022 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Before we vote on the resolution, can I ask a question, Madam Chair? And I'm not getting into
Yes.
this debate. There was a question direction that was asked by staff pertaining to providing free skating to public skating to both our arenas. It's a budgetary issue. It has an effect
Madam
on
Mayor.
revenues.
Madam Mayor,
It's not
there's
a-
a motion on the floor to adjourn to accept a bylaw. I need a vote on that before we can proceed to a different discussion.
But what's the motion that we're voting on?
To
To
adopt a
adjourn?
confirmatory bylaw.
No, so keep going, Melanie. It's call the vote.
I'm just waiting for the chair for Councillor Lees to call to a vote.
Okay, all in favor? Except Mr. Rowley, don't count Mr. Rowley because he's been asked to leave and I wanted to see that in the minute.
Okay, it is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that the budget meeting of council held on March 8th, 2022 be adjourned.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, do you want to ask? Can she ask a question now?
Well, you can't, as I indicated in emails, everybody's trying to be proper and follow procedure and this and that. This is not proper procedure any more than Steph, who was asking for, leave from council to be able to get it done is not proper procedure.
Well,
I don't care either way. I don't care either way because, you can drop all of that, folks, because it's the residents. And I'm not making a political speech here. If you want to provide free skating for your residents, just put your hands up, forget your procedures and just start doing what people want to do. If you want to have free skating starting this Friday, if there's no objections, then we'll do that. If any objections, no?
no, but it's at least we're transparent, Mr. Barbeau. We're doing publicly.
We could have done the announcement. That's, what.
You know what? Madam
Okay,
Chair,
so
I
is
don't
it
wanna
no, we're
get-
not going?
I do not want to get into a debate. I just wanted to make
want the
sure
last word,
that
though.
we
Go ahead.
dealt with it openly, and I have no objection to give direction to staff to proceed with the recommendation.
Well,
so-
council is giving direction. Yeah, okay.
Well, I
Okay,
don't-
okay, can we have a mover to adjourn,
No,
are we
it's not
finished?
over.
Yeah.
The meeting is already adjourned. It's unfortunate.